Raskolnikov was already entering the room, looking as though he had the utmost difficulty not to burst out laughing again. Behind him strode Resume, gawky, awkward, red as peony, and wearing an utterly ferocious expression. Raskolnikov, not waiting for introduction, walked straight up to Porfir Petrovich, who stood in middle of the room looking inquiringly at them. He held out his hand, still making desperate efforts to subdue his mirth, but the moment he tried to assume a serious air and mutter an introduction, he caught sight of Razumihin again. His stifled laughter broke out irresistibly. Razumihin's pure rage only made the scene look more genuinely hilarious. Razumihin, roaring and waving his arm. Fool, you fiend! His arm struck a little round table with an empty tea glass on it, sending everything flying and crashing on the floor. Porfiri Petrovich gaily quoting. But why break the chairs? Gentlemen, you know it's a loss to the crown. Razumihin, completely mortified by smashing glass, cursed under his breath, turned sharply, and stood facing the window with his back to the room. Porfiri Petrovich laughed, looking for an explanation. Sitting in the corner was Zametov. He rose with a polite but surprised smile, looking at Raskolnikov with a sudden embarrassment and disbelief. Zametov's unexpected presence struck Raskolnikov unpleasantly. I've got to think about that, Raskolnikov thought. Raskolnikov, affecting extreme embarrassment. Excuse me, please. I'm Raskolnikov. Porfiri Petrovich. Not at all. Very pleasant to see you. And how pleasantly you come in. Why won't he even say good morning? He nodded at Razumhin. Raskolnikov, upon my honor, I don't know why he is in such a rage with me. I only told him as we come along that he was like Romeo and proved it. And that was all, I think. Razumin, without turning round. Pig, Porfiri Petrovich laughing. There must have been very grave grounds for it if he is so furious at the word. Razumin, snapping, then suddenly bursting into laugh himself as he turned round. Oh, you sharp lawyer. Damn you all. That'll do. We're all fools. To come to business, this is my friend Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov. First, he has heard of you and wanted to make your acquaintance. And secondly, he has a little matter of business with you. Bah, Zamido, what brought you here? Have you met before? Have you known each other long? Raskolnikov thought uneasily, what does this mean? Zametov seemed slightly taken aback, but remained calm. Zametov easily. Why? It was at your rooms we met yesterday. Razumin. Then I went spare the trouble. All last week, he was begging me to introduce him to you, Porfiri. And you two have sniffed each other out without me. Where's your tobacco? Porfiri Petrovich was wearing a clean dressing gown and trodden down slippers. He was a short, stout man of about 35, clean-shaven, with a large round head. His soft, snub-nosed face was of a sickly yellowish color, but it carried a vigorous, ironical expression. His watery eyes blinked under almost white eyelashes, giving him a look far more serious and calculating than his somewhat womanish figure suggested. Hearing that his visitor had business, Porphyry invited Raskolnikov to sit on the sofa. Sitting at the opposite end himself, he waited with a heavy, overly serious attention that was intensely oppressive. Raskolnikov explained his business clearly and concisely. Raskolnikov explaining his pledges. I simply want to declare that the things are mine, and that when I have money, Porfiry Petrovich, receiving the financial explanation coldly, but that's no matter. You can, if you prefer, write straight to me to say that having been informed of the matter and claiming such and such as your property, you beg. Raskolnikov eagerly. On an ordinary sheet of paper, Porfiry Petrovich. Oh, the most ordinary. Suddenly, Porfiry looked at him with obvious irony, screwing up his eyes and distinctly winking. Raskolnikov would have sworn it happened. He knows, flashed through his mind like lightning. Raskolnikov, disconcerted but pushing through. Forgive my troubling you about such trifles. The things are only worth 5 rubles, but I prize them particularly for the sake of those from whom they came to me. Razumihin interrupted. That's why you were so much struck when I mentioned to Zosimo that Porfiry was inquiring for everyone who had pledges. Raskolnikov shot Razumihin a glance of pure, vindictive anger, but immediately forced his voice to tremble with fake irritation. Raskolnikov, you seem to be jeering at me, brother. I dare say I seem absurdly anxious about such trash tale, but the silver watch is the only thing left of my father's. You may laugh, but my mother is here, and if she knew that the watch was lost, she would be in despair. You know what women are. Resume in distress. Not a bit of it. I didn't mean that at all. Was it natural? Did I overdo it? Raskolnikov asked himself in a tremor. Why did I bring up women? Porfiry Petrovich. Oh, your mother is with you. When did she come? Last night. Your things would not in any case be lost. I've been expecting you here for some time. He casually offered an ashtray to Razumihin, who was making a mess. Razumihin, surprised. What? Expecting him? Why did you know that he had pledges there? Provided Petrovich to Raskolnikov. Your things, the ring and the watch, were wrapped together, and on the paper your name was legibly written in pencil, along with the date you left them. Raskolnikov, smiling awkwardly, trying to look him straight in the eye. How observant you are. I said that because I suppose there were a great many pages. It must be difficult to remember them at all. Stupid, feeble, Raskolnikov thought. Why did I add that? Porfiry Petrovich with faint irony. But we know everyone who had pledges, and you are the only one who hasn't come forward. Raskolnikov. I have been quite well. Okay, 20 seconds break is here. So look at that place straight. Porfiry Petrovich, I heard that too. I heard you were in great distress about something. You look pale still. Raskolnikov, snapping rudely and angrily, losing his temper. I'm not pale at all. I'm not pale at all. No, I'm quite well. In my anger, I shall betray myself, he thought. Why are they torturing me? Resuming him. Not quite well? What next? He was unconscious and delirious all yesterday. As soon as our backs were turned, he dressed, slipped out, and went off on a spree until midnight. Delirious the whole time. Porfiry Petrovich. Really delirious? You don't say so. Raskolnikov letting it slip in his anger. Nonsense! Don't you believe it? But you don't believe it anyway. Porfiry didn't seem to acknowledge the strange remark. Resuming. But how could you have gone out if you hadn't been delirious? What did you go out on this lie? Were you in your right mind? Raskolnikov, with a smile of insolent defiance to Porfiry. I was awfully sick of them yesterday. I ran away from them to take lodgings where they wouldn't find me and took a lot of money with me. Mr. Zametov there saw it. I say Mr. Zametov was I sensible or delirious yesterday. Settle our dispute. He wanted to strangle Zametov, whose quiet look was agonizing. Zametov dryly, in my opinion, you talked sensibly and even artfully, but you were extremely irritable. Porfiry Petrovich. And Nikon Informich was telling me today that he met you very late last night in the lodging of a man who had been run over. Resuming. Exactly. And once you met them, you gave your last penny to the widow for the funeral. You flung away all 25 rubles at once. Raskolnikov, lips trembling with rage. Maybe I found a treasure somewhere, and you know nothing of it. Mr. Zametov knows I found a treasure. Excuse us, please, for disturbing you with such trivialities. Porfiry Petrovich, we are boring you, aren't we? Porfiry Petrovich, oh no, quite the contrary. If only you knew how you interest me. It's interesting to look on and listen. And I'm really glad you have come forward at last. Resuming. But you might give us some tea. My throat's dry. Porfiry Petrovich. Capital idea. I'll order it. He stepped out of the room. Raskolnikov's thoughts spread a wild whirl. They aren't even hiding it, he thought, shaking with rage. They are tracking me like a pack of dogs. Come, strike me openly. Don't play with me like a cat with a mouse. Did Porfiry wink at me? Is it my imagination? Or do they know? They have no facts. Everything is just supposition. But my being angry right now is a fact. Fool! How irritable I am! Porfiry Petrovich returned quickly, appearing much more jovial. Porfiry Petrovich, laughing to resume. Your party yesterday, brother, has left my head rather split. I am out of sorts altogether. Who got the best of the argument? Resuming. Oh, no one. Of course. They got on to everlasting questions, floating off into space. Resuming him, turning to Raskolnikov. Only fancy, Rodion, what we got onto yesterday. Whether there is such a thing as crime. I told you, we talked our heads off. Raskolnikov casually. What is there strange? It's an everyday social question. Porfiry Petrovich. The question wasn't put quite like that. Resuming, getting warm. Listen, Rodion, I want your opinion. You begin with the socialist doctrine. You know their view? Crime is just a protest against an abnormal social organization and nothing more. No other cause is admitted. Porfiry Petrovich, laughing. You are wrong there, resuming with heat. I'm not wrong. I'll show you their pamphlets. Everything with them is the influence of environment, nothing else. They believe that if society is normally organized, all crimes will cease instantly because there will be nothing to protest against. They include human nature entirely. They don't want a living soul. The living soul demands life and won't obey mechanics. What they want smells of death. It's made of rubber and won't revolt. It reduces everything to building walls and planning rooms in a commune. The commune is ready, but human nature isn't. You can't skip over nature with logic. Porfiry Petrovich laughing. Now he's off, beating the drum. Can you imagine six people holding forth like that last night after drinking punch? No, brother, you are wrong. Environment accounts for a great deal in crime, I assure you. Resuming. Oh, I know it does. But tell me, if a man of 40 violates a child of 10, was it environment that drove him to it? Porfiry Petrovich with remarkable gravity. Well, strictly speaking, yes. A crime of that nature may very well be ascribed to the influence of environment. Resuming, almost in a frenzy. Oh, if you like, I'll prove to you that your white eyelashes are caused by the height of the even, the Great Bell Tower, and I'll prove it progressively and scientifically. Will you bet on it? Porfiry Petrovich, done. Let's hear it. Resuming, gesticulating to Raskolnikov. He is always humbugging. Confound him. He took their side yesterday simply to make fools of them. Last year, he persuaded us he was going into a monastery for 2 months. Not long ago, he declared he was getting married and ordered new clothes, and there was no bride at all. Pure fancy. Porfiry Petrovich, you are wrong. It was the new clothes that made me think of taking you in. But no, I'll tell you the truth. All this talk of crime reminds me of article of yours, Raskolnikov, which interested me deeply. On crime. I read it 2 months ago in the periodical review. Raskolnikov, astonished. My article? In the periodical review? I did write an article 6 months ago when I left the university, but I sent it to the weekly review. Porfiry Petrovich, the weekly review ceased to exist. So it amalgamated with the periodical, and your article appeared there 2 months ago. Didn't you know? Raskolnikov had not known. Resuming. Bravo, Rodia. I knew nothing about it either. I'll run to the reading room today and find it. Think of not telling us. Raskolnikov. How did you find out the article was mine? It was only signed with an initial. Porfiry Petrovich. I learned it by chance, thought the editor. I know him. I was very interested. Raskolnikov. I analyzed if I remember the psychology of a criminal before and after the crime. Profile Petrovich. Yes, and you maintain that committing a crime is always accompanied by illness. Very original. But it was an idea at the very end that interested me most. You suggested that there are certain persons who have a perfect right to commit crimes and break laws, and that the law is not for them. Raskolnikov smiled at that deliberate distortion of his idea, leaving him alone. What? What do you mean? A right to crime, but not because of the environment? Porfiry Petrovich. No, not because of that. In his article, all men are divided into ordinary and extraordinary. Ordinary men must live in submission, have no right to break the law, because they are ordinary. But extraordinary men have a right to commit any crime just because they are extraordinary. That was your idea, if I'm not mistaken. Resumed bewildered. What do you mean? That can't be right. Raskolnikov smiled again. He saw exactly where Porfiry was driving him and decided to accept the challenge. Raskolnikov, simply and modestly. That wasn't quite my contention. Though you have cited it almost correctly, I don't contend that extraordinary people are bound to commit crimes. I simply hinted an extraordinary man has the right, not an official right, but an inner right in his own conscience to overstep certain obstacles. If it is absolutely essential for the fulfillment of an idea that might benefit humanity, if the discoveries of the Kepler and Newton could not have been made known except by sacrificing the lives of 100 men, Newton would have had the right, indeed, the duty to eliminate those 100 men. But it doesn't follow that Newton had a right to murder people, right or left, or steal in the market. Furthermore, I maintain that all leaders of men, such as Lycurgus, Solon, Mahomet, Napoleon, were all without exception criminals, because by introducing a new law, they broke the old one held sacred by the people. They did not stop short at bloodshed if it served their cause. In short, I maintain that all good men capable of saying something new must, by their very nature, be criminals to some degree. Otherwise, it is hard for them to get out of the common rut which they cannot submit to. My division of people into ordinary and extraordinary is arbitrary, but the leading idea is the law of nature. The first category is conservative and law abiding. They love to be controlled and it is their duty. The second category, all break the law. They are destroyers. If such a person is forced for the sake of his idea to step over a corpse or wade through blood, he can find a sanction within his own conscience to do so. The masses rarely admit this right initially. They hang them or execute them, fulfilling their own conservative duty. But the very next generation puts those same criminals on a pedestal and worships them. The first category is the master of the present. The second is the master of future. Both classes have an equal right to exist and viola dure eternal until the new Jerusalem. Of course, Porfiry Petrovich. Then you believe in the new Jerusalem, do you? Raskolnikov, firmly keeping his eyes on a spot on the carpet. I do. Porfiry Petrovich. And do you believe in God? Excuse my curiosity. I do. Porfiry Petrovich. And do you believe in Lazarus rising from the dead? I I do. Why do you ask all of this? Porfiry Petrovich. You believe literally? Literally. Porfiry Petrovich. You don't say so. I asked out of curiosity. But let us go back. These extraordinary people don't always get executed. Some triumph in their lifetime, don't they? Raskolnikov. Oh yes. Some attain their ends in this life. And then Herr Petrovich. They begin executing their people, other people. They begin executing other people. Raskolnikov. If it's necessary, indeed, for the most part they do. Your remark is very fitting. Fire Petrovich. Thank you. But tell me this, how do you distinguish these extraordinary people from the ordinary ones? Are there signs at their birth? Couldn't they adopt a special uniform or be branded in some way? Because if an ordinary person confuses themselves for an extraordinary one and begins to eliminate obstacles, as you put it, Raskolnikov, oh, that happens very often. That remark is weirier than the last. Porfiry Petrovich. Thank you. Raskolnikov. No reason to, but that mistake only happens among the ordinary people. Many of them like to imagine themselves advanced destroyers and push themselves into the new movement quite sincerely, while missing the truly new people entirely. But there is no real danger there. They never go very far. They might get a thrashing sometimes to teach them their place, but usually they punish themselves because they are very conscientious. They will impose public acts of penance upon themselves. It's a law of nature. Porfiry Petrovich. Well, you have set my mind at rest on that score. But another thing worries me. Are there many people who have this right to kill others? It's a bit alarming if there are a great many of them, huh? Raskolnikov in the same time. You needn't worry about that either. People capable of saying something even slightly new are extremely few. The vast mass of mankind is mere material, existing only to eventually bring into the world, through some mysterious process, one man out of 1,000 with a spark of independence, a man of genius, is one in millions. And the great geniuses appear perhaps once in many thousand millions. There must be a definite law to it. It cannot be chance. Resuming, crying out at last. Why are you both joking? There you sit, making fun of one another. Are you serious, Rodya? Raskolnikov raised his pale, almost mournful face and made no reply. To resume him, Porphyry's persistent, discourteous sarcasm seemed incredibly strange next to Raskolnikov's quiet, tragic expression. Resuming to Raskolnikov, well, brother, if you're really serious, you are right that it's not entirely new. But what is truly original and horrifying is that you validate bloodshed in the name of conscience and with some fanaticism. That is the core of your article. Wait 20 seconds, right? Oh, some nice game. And validating bloodshed by conscience is far more terrifying than an official legal execution. Porfiry Petrovich, you are quite right. It is much more terrible. Resume. You must have exaggerated. There is a mistake. I'm gonna read it myself. You can't actually think that. Raskolnikov. All of that isn't explicitly in the article. There is only a hint of it. Porfiry Petrovich, unable to sit still. Oh, yes, yes. Your attitude toward crime is pretty clear to me now. But excuse my impatience. I'm truly ashamed to keep worrying you while you relieve my anxiety about the two categories mixing up. There are still practical scenarios that make me uneasy. What if a young man imagines he's a future like Kyrgyz or Mahomet, decides he needs money for some grand enterprise, and begins to remove all obstacles to get it? You see, Samuel gave a sudden guffaw from his corner. Raskolnikov did not even look at him. Raskolnikov calmly. I must admit that such cases definitely happen. The vain and foolish are particularly apt to fall into the snare, young people especially. Porfiry Petrovich. Exactly. Well then, Raskolnikov smiled. What then? That's not my fault. It is how it is, and how it always will be. Razumihin just said that I sanction bloodshed. But society is perfectly well protected by prisons, exile, investigators, and hard labor. There's no need to be uneasy. You just have to catch the thief, Porfiry Petrovich. And what if we do catch him? Raskolnikov. Then he gets what he deserves. Porfiry. You are certainly logical. But what of his conscience? Raskolnikov. Why do you care about that? Porfiry. Simply out of humanity. Raskolnikov. If he has a conscience, he will suffer for his mistake. That will be his punishment, right alongside prison. Razumihin frowning. But what about the real geniuses? Those who actually have the right to murder? Do they not suffer at all for the blood they have shed? क्या फैन बॉक्स मतलब पूछेंगे 2 मिनट रुक जाओ बस pain and suffering are inevitable for a massive intelligence and deep heart. The truly great man 5 मिनट रुक जाओ बस फोन हो तो कर लो आप ही कर लो मेरे को तो पता नहीं है The truly great man must, I think, experience great sadness on this earth. He raised his eyes, looked earnestly at them all, smiled, and picked up his cap. He was entirely too quiet and compared to how loudly he had entered. And he knew it. Everyone stood up. Porfiry, well, you can be angry with me if you like, but I can resist. Allow me one tiny question. Just a little thought I want to throw out before I forget it. Raskolnikov standing pale and grave. Very well, let's hear your little thought. Porfiry, well, it's just a playful psychological idea. When you were writing that article, surely you couldn't help, hey, fancying yourself just a little bit as one of those extraordinary men uttering a new word. Isn't that right? Raskolnikov contemptuously. Quite possibly. Razumihin made an uneasy movement. Porfiry Petrovich. And if so, if you found yourself in deep hardship, you wanted to perform some grand service for humanity, could you bring yourself to overstep the obstacles? For instance, to rob and murder. He winked his left eye and laughed noiselessly again. Raskolnikov with howdy defiant contempt. If I did, I certainly would not tell you, Porfiry Petrovich. No, no. I was only interested from a literary point of view on account of your article. How incredibly obvious and insolent he is. Raskolnikov thought with deep repulsion. Raskolnikov dryly. Allow me to observe that I do not consider myself a Mahomet or a Napoleon, since I am not one of them. I cannot tell you how would I act. Porfiry. Oh, come now. Doesn't everyone in Russia think themselves as a Napoleon these days? Zamidov, blurting out from his corner. Perhaps it was one of these future Napoleons who finished off Eleona Ivanovna last week. Raskolnikov remained silent, staring firmly and intently to Porfiry's eyes. Razumihin was scowling gloomingly, finally noticing the sinister undercurrent in the room. A heavy silence fell over them. Raskolnikov turned to leave. Porfiry, amiably shaking hands with excessive politeness. Are you leaving already? Very, very glad to make your acquaintance. As for your request, don't worry. Write the letter as I told you, or better yet, come see me at my office tomorrow. I'll be there at 11 for certain. We'll arrange everything and have a good talk. As one of the last people to visit the old woman, you might be able to tell us something. He smiled with a completely good-natured expression. Raskolnikov sharply. You want to cross-examine me officially? Porfiry. Oh, why put it like that? It's not necessary for now. You misunderstand me. I just don't lose any opportunities. You see, I would talk to everyone who had pledges. I got evidence from some. And you are the last. Oh, by the way, he turned to resume, appearing suddenly delighted. I just remembered you were talking my ear off about Nikolai, and I know perfectly well the fellow is innocent. But when you went up the stairs that evening, Raskolnikov, it was past 7 o'clock, wasn't it? Raskolnikov answering with an immediate pang of regret that he had spoken. Yes, Porfiry. Then, when you went upstairs between 7 and 8, did you happen to notice an open flat on the second floor? Do you remember seeing two workmen, or at least one of them? They were painting there. It's very important for our case. Painters? Raskolnikov thought, his nerves racking as he frantically searched for the trap. He mastered his panic and realized his move. Raskolnikov slowly pretending to ransack his memory. Painters? No, I didn't see them. I don't think I noticed any open flat there. But on the fourth floor, I distinctly remember someone moving out of the flat opposite Aleona Ivanovna's. Some paupers were carrying out a sofa and pinned me against the wall. But painters? No, I don't remember any painters. And I don't think any flat was open. Resuming, shouting suddenly as he pieced it together. What are you talking about? The painters were working there on the day of the murder. Raskolnikov was 3 days before the murder. What kind of question is that? Porfiry slapping his forehead. Damn it, I completely muddled it. This case is turning my brain. He turned to Raskolnikov apologetically. It would be a huge deal for us to find out if anyone saw them between 7 and 8 that night. So I thought you could tell us something. I totally mixed up the days. Resuming grimly as they stepped into the passage. Then you should be more careful. Porfiry saw them out to the door with excessive politeness. The two friends walked out in the street, gloomy and silent. After a few steps, Raskolnikov drew a deep, heavy breath. Finished, my boys. Finished. Yes.